Alright, cell shading some goopy creatures today. Gotta make sure the volume is going okay. I might talk during this live stream. Can't tell if this. Let me check out some other music here. So this is Big the Cat. Let's say something more familiar. Make sure the sonic music sounds correct. It's just sometimes it gets glitchy. Alright. So, animating some VJ loops and just going through the tedious process of cell shading them. Well, this is one I started a couple days ago. It's a logo animation, and then I was also working on this one of some smoke with stars. But right now I am going through the tedious process of going through each individual frame and going on separate layers and adding cell shading and highlights. So this is kind of what it looks like without the shading. It becomes a lot more flat. So it is tedious, but it helps things to kind of pop a little more. So that's what I've been working on. So I have to go over frame by frame, and later I'll erase the stuff that's going past the border, or like the lines here. So I'm like kind of drawing outside of the lines. I can easily erase that with the bucket tool later. So I'm not really worried about that. Right now I'm just worried about following the 3D form and adding some shading that kind of wraps around it so that it won't feel like just flat colors. And even though this is kind of like an abstract type of creature, you can still add things to it to make it feel a little more grounded in reality, so that if you put it into other scenes with backgrounds, it can kind of look like it fits. And the program I'm animating in is called TV Paint. I often don't use the light box when I'm doing the cell shading. I just like to go straight ahead animation, one frame after another. Hey, thanks Isaac MP4, appreciate the kind words. Not sure how many hours I've put into this particular loop yet, but surprisingly probably more than you might think. Alright, so I think that's looking pretty good. Go over. So I'm also adding dark highlights inside the eye, or shadows rather. So now, let's see here. I'll deal with the highlight next. What color was I using for this? Alright, go in and make these eyes pop a little more. And it's just about following the contour lines of this iris. Changing the shape with it frame by frame. It's kind of inspired by the parade scene in Paprika, where you have all these little walking toys and frogs and appliances, and the stuff in that movie is cel shaded in a appealing kind of goopy way that I always like. So cel shading, you can do a lot with just 2 tones, or 3 tones rather, where you have the flat colors and then you add 1 dark layer and then 1 highlight layer. Just those 3 little differences in light can add a lot of dimensionality to it. And with 2D cel style animation, especially since it's all frame by frame, like figuring out a way to simplify things while still communicating the direction of light, that's the trick. So I'm animating 9 of these goopy little surreal creatures for a pack, for a VJ pack that I'll be posting on my Patreon and shop that people can use in their own videos or live performances, live streams, etc., etc. Here, turn the light box on. So with the light box I can kind of see the arcs or the trail of highlights that I have. Trying to make sure I'm keeping things kind of lined up nicely and compare the sizes. I need this one to shrink a little less drastically, then it'll start to shrink. What's up, Eli? Having a pretty good day, can't complain too much. Just enjoying my snow day. Well, actually I'm not, because I can't walk, so I've been sad. I can't walk. I've been watching Dragon Ball Daima. I think I'm on episode 14 now. Been trying to not get spoiled on social media, but I think I might have saw something pretty cool that might be coming up. Looks trippy with the lightbox trails on. Yeah, I think it might be cool to do a animation like that where you have like multiples of the frames still showing. I liked your goopy little bouncing creature, by the way. Animating goopy stuff automatically bumps things up a letter grade in my book. I just love squashy and stretchy liquidy stuff. It's so fun to animate. Play around with the physics. I still haven't seen Cyberpunk Edge Runners. The most kind of recent animation thing I've watched, as far as like new animation, was Blue Eye Samurai, which was amazing. And then I just finished Fiona and Cake, which is a little bit, I mean, it's pretty new, but not super new. That was also really good. And then the next stuff I really want to watch is Scavenger's Reign. And Common Side Effects looks pretty interesting. For as much turmoil as the animation industry is in right now, at least there are some cutting edge shows that are being made. I hope to, well, everything's dependent on budget and time and everything. Right now I'm kind of in survival mode, so I can't really think about passion projects, but we all are. It's been a pretty tough, decade, but I am gonna try to just like, even if I could just spend an hour a day working on personal stuff, then that would be psychologically therapeutic, and also like just have a lot of, I want to experiment more with like doing more narrative animation stuff that tells an actual story. I have some music videos that sort of tell a story, but you can only go so far with the music video. It tends to be more of a mood piece. So yeah, Blue Eye Samurai is a great show. I heard it takes them a bit to make that show, and that's why it takes so long for the next season to come out. Yeah, I watched a little behind the scenes thing, and they incorporate 2D animation, 3D animation, and a lot of live action reference footage where they actually film themselves doing things like martial arts, and the storyboard artist, or the one of the animation directors of that show, Blue Eye Samurai, was one of the main storyboard artists for Into the Spider-Verse. So they're incorporating a lot of those techniques too, of like combining the 3D with hand-drawn elements. It's the best of both worlds. I really like this sort of hybrid style where you have 2D animation that is used to enhance the 3D, make it feel more handmade and more like human. And then you have like stuff where in 2D animation where you're using 3D tools to enhance the 2D animation, such as with camera movements or texture mapping hand-drawn elements onto 3D surfaces and doing things with the camera that you could never realistically, feasibly, or budget-wise, you could never pull off using just purely hand-drawn methods. So I like this dance between 2D and 3D where the two aren't competing with each other, but rather they are enhancing each other, and each one is using what they excel at and not fighting against what they're not as good at doing. Okay, I'm pretty much done with this one. I just have to do some polish and stuff like that, but I'm gonna move on to another thing. Okay, I saved. I was worried about losing my progress. Let's see here. I guess I could work on this one. Yeah, they're definitely Mobius influence, 100%. I mean, what science fiction animated thing isn't at least a little influenced by Mobius? but it still has its own unique voice. This is 18%. Easy to remember. Change that to 25%. So like most of the brain work's pretty much done after the rough animation stage, and then doing the cleanup is a little bit more like you're just tracing the roughs, but you still have to be mindful of any mistakes you might have made in the roughs. And then doing the cell shading is kind of like in between cleanup and rough animation, where it's kind of automated like the cleanup because you already put the brain work into the rough stage, but it's a little bit like more decisions to be made than just straight up cleanup, because you're thinking about the 3D form of the shape and how to shade it. So it is a little tedious, but it can help things kind of pop a little bit. I usually just go one frame after another, whereas for the rough animation I'd definitely do more key poses and like make a motion path, things like that. But usually just like to do one little piece at a time, because like if you try to cell shade the entire image and then go to the next frame, you kind of lose that momentum. So I like to just kind of focus on cell shading one tiny little piece and then go back over it. And plus, like, if you get these little small wins along the way, then it encourages you to keep going. Otherwise, sometimes it feels a little too overwhelming. Well, cell shading, I mean, it refers to the classical cell system where the paints were made on cells, transparent sheets, and you would paint on the shadows. So even though this is digital, it's the same concept of going over and drawing these flat cell shaded colors. Yeah, exactly. Flats, shadows, highlights. So I keep all the flats on their own layer, and then I create a new layer for the shadows, and then a third layer for the highlights. That way, everything is separated. And if you have to make edits or like change the flats, you can do that without changing the shadows and highlights. So right now I'm just drawing the outline of the shadows, and I'll later go in and do the colors. So like this is what it'll look like colored in. So that's the outlines, and then that'll be how it is colored in, the flat color. It's weird, like, animating this kind of way, like, I don't really know how to explain it. Like, it can be stressful, but it's also really calming and meditative, because it's this repetitive, frame-by-frame process, like one breath after another, one step after another, and you're just hyper-focused on a single goal, a single process and activity. It really puts you in the flow state, especially like doing cell shading or like the more automated, I don't want to say mindless because none of it's mindless, but the parts where you don't have to like concentrate as hard. Like if you're doing storyboard or rough animation, I would not be able to talk right now, but because I've already thought about how these motions are in the rough stage, then the part of my mind that can talk is freed up, so I'm able to talk a little bit. Even though talking in general, I do find it kind of hard. Of course, I always end up talking about talking when I start doing these streams. I'm trying to stop doing that, but I just ended up doing it again. Darn it. Oh well. I think people who communicate visually often have a difficulty communicating with words, but it's something I've worked really hard on, and some of the stuff that's helped honestly is just reading, because you're processing long form content of language in a book, and it helps you with word processing. I should have a faster way to color all this stuff, but like I wouldn't So in this example, I was just kind of going by frame, clicking, filling it in. But the faster way is actually I'm going to make another layer underneath this and just color the entire screen the color I want, and then set the erase tool to reference above, and then I'll erase everything around the lines and everything will be colored in automatically. I don't know if that made sense, but that's the fastest way to color in TV Paint. That's how I usually do it. But I'm gonna start experimenting with Procreate if I can ever use my iPad. I don't have a Apple Pencil yet. Better save my April foolishness so I'm not a sad Boy Scout when I lose all my progress. Yeah, responding to people when you're sketching can be tricky. Especially if you're like in a public place or a social context, there's extra stimulation going on. I used to go to a life drawing kind of group like 10 years ago. Did it for like a year, but it got kind of expensive. But I mean, it's nice that we have online resources now, like that one website, I can't remember. I really like drawing at a zoo. I like drawing animals more than people. I think drawing animals is a little more forgiving because everyone knows exactly what a human should look like, so if you make mistakes on that, it's more obvious. Whereas with animals, unless it's someone's pet, they don't really know every nuance and detail. So there's a little more leeway to be a little loosey-goosey with your gooses. I really love turtles and cats. They're my favorite animals. I just love, that might seem weird because they might seem kind of opposite. Turtles might seem more, in their shell. Cats are more expressive. Turtles can't even express with their faces. And turtles are not very athletic. Cats are very flexible and athletic. But I just love them both so much. My favorites. Oh, nice. I'm so glad to hear that you're working on a storyboard. That inspires me to work on a storyboard. Take my own advice too. It's really easy to give advice, but to actually act on it, that's what matters. So I commend you for that. I did write down some ideas though. I haven't really been working on storyboards so much as scripts or like sketches. Well, not like visual sketches, but like story sketches in Word documents. But it's all a bunch of random loose particles and loose bits of chaos that I'm having trouble putting a spine to. I just have like individual scenes or moods or feelings or sets, like mood pieces, but figuring out the structure is the part I'm having trouble with. I have been reading books on screenwriting, such as Save the Cat by Blake Snyder. Mixed feelings about that book. He's extremely dogmatic about his specific approach to screenwriting. He's very stubborn about it. This is the only way that works. And he has like a whole beat sheet that he says you have to follow and all this stuff. I was like, okay, that's one way to do it, but there's a lot of other ways, and no one agrees on the one true way. But there are a lot of good tips for figuring out how to do your plot points and like have a 3-act structure. And like another book was Screenplay by, I can't remember his name now, read it like a year ago, but it's a older one, and I found that one very helpful for just learning how to actually write and format a screenplay, even though I don't really remember how to format it. But it's more so just thinking about how to tell a coherent story. That's the part. I'm not trying to rewrite the wheel or anything like that. So, because I've already done my weirdo art films, I want to do something that can be understood. Like, you can still have weird stuff in it, but like, I don't know. It can still be surreal, but not. I don't want it to just be like you're in someone's dream, and the dream only makes sense to the dreamer. Of course, I'm talking about all this stuff as I'm animating surreal, dreamy stuff that probably doesn't make sense to anyone. But again, this is like just a loop, so it's a short form content. It's not like a movie, a 60 to 120 minute story. You need some pathos, you need characters that have clear motivations and goals to hold the attention of the audience. If this was just surreal visuals for an hour, that could be cool in its own right, but it's not accomplishing a storytelling goal, unless the goal is to induce a sort of trance-like state in the viewer, or to get people discussing how your crappy art movie is really deep or something. But I think that's already been done enough, and I'd rather just try to make something that has weird elements but isn't weird for the sake of being weird or for being like a concept art piece. So I guess on that note, the two kind of main stories that are in pre-production in terms of actually having things written for it is an idea about these. It's a rubber hose cartoon, like a classic, 1930s style cartoon idea, tentatively called Firefly Frenzy, and it's about this forest of fireflies and who are being tormented by a group of light-sucking mosquitoes. So the mosquitoes are there to drain their lights, and there'll be a bunch of like visual gags about all that, and it'll just be like a kind of fun type of cartoon with visual gags and really, like not just like a straight up trying to copy 1930s style. I want to put my own spin on it, but just like in the rubber hose genre. and be a short film, maybe 7 minutes long. Might have some musical pieces where the characters sing things, you know, like and then another idea is about this tower. It's not Rubber Hose style, so I haven't really thought about the style, but probably more like a little bit more gritty type graphic novel style, about this tower that never stops being built and it never stops rising, and it's being built by these bird creatures, and it's basically like a cult, and so it'll be a little bit more like have more edginess in it, I guess, a little more philosophical, have a lot to do with language, and well, yeah, that's pretty vague, but those are like the kind of two story, like really just broad concepts that have been gestating, been percolating. Yeah, just with this kind of cell shading stuff, I just flip back and forth one frame after the other, just going back and forth, compare the lines between the two frames. And for some reason, my left hand gets hurt a lot. Well, probably because I'm using it to click on my keyboard, but I don't really have carpal tunnel stuff, I don't think, but I do get the kind of elbow tennis type stuff. My left hand. Sometimes my ring finger and my pinky finger fall asleep. That's probably not good. So just remember to do your stretches. Ooh, I see here, this one's getting stuck. Turn my light box on and in between this a little better. So we have a smooth transition. A smooth transition. Sometimes these lines bundle up and they get caught and it makes a jitter. So gotta make sure that in betweening the lines are spaced correctly. They ease in and out of movements. Looks better. Yeah. Alright. Actually, never mind. Well, I guess I could show some of the character. Let me save this. I might show some of the character. Crap. Hold on. I might show some of the character designs. Like the really rough, loosey-goosey sketch ideas for some stuff. Yeah. For some Rubber Hose stuff. Let's see if I can find it. Doobie doobie doo. Let's see here. I have so many folders. I'm trying to. All these are all just different projects. A lot of VJ packs, different programs. Let's see here. nowhere. Lightning bug. Ah, here we go. Lightning bug. Lightning bug concept sketches. Well, so this is like, I might change this a lot, but this is like an idea. The lightning bugs live in a little shrub place. Something. This is all a little too nebulous. Hold up. Okay, so here's an idea. This guy's like a king. Little king lightning bug guy. And he rides in a acorn. And then that's a sad lightning bug. And this is another design idea of a lightning bug. It's got little swirly things, swirly antennas, and then they can look around with the light, the searchlight. And then this is a idea for the bad mosquitoes that suck the light out of the lightning bugs, have a big long nose. And just kind of trying to think of another way to draw them. And then let's see maybe how he could look when he's flying. He's got some little feet like that. And then this is like just an idea of a mosquito battling this little leader lightning bug guy is using a mushroom for a shield and a little pine needle for a sword, battling. This idea there. And what else? Bug cartoon thumbnails. Oh, this is kind of hard to explain. I don't really know. So I need to read this. But the mosquitoes will live in like a mosquito mine. And then some stuff. Oh, this was like a rough idea. The mosquito barges in to the shrub. He flies down. And he lands. Ha ha ha. Mind if I drop in? How's about I just flip that grin? You think you're bright, I'll snuff out your light. No puny bug could ever match my might. Ha ha ha. So, yeah. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but yeah. Is there anything else? Oh, well, I guess that's all I'll show for it for now. Yeah, that's all I'll show for it for now. But originally, so like the only other kind of Rubros cartoon I did was City of Venom for Mashed, and that was black and white. But this one, of course, will be colored because I want the lightning bugs to have cool lights going around. But so I haven't figured out the colors or anything yet. So yeah. And then what other stuff? Crap. Whatever. Too many files open. Get back to this April foolishness. Yeah, thank you. Glad it sounds exciting. Yeah, I'll post about it more and share more about it once it's a little more presentable. Because a lot of it's just rough ideas. I'm considering trying out Kickstarter just for like short films. Just figuring out how to budget things is always the hard part. I just want to make art. I wish I didn't have to worry about all that stuff, but I was thinking like different rewards on Patreon, or not Patreon, Kickstarter. It's always interesting. I like looking at what people do for their stretch goals and things like that. I was thinking like a stretch goal could be like a digital comic, like a comic book version of the film, or a comic book separate story, like a sequel but in comic style, or a comic that just follows one character and explores like a different character's perspective, stuff like that, to flesh out the story even more. Because with a comic you can more easily tell a longer form type of story, whereas animation, it's a lot of work to just tell a few seconds worth of story. So I think that could be a cool stretch goal. And also potentially like to do like a Silly Symphonies type of thing, where it's a whole series of these rubber hose type cartoons that explore, that just celebrate the joy of 2D animation. And obviously if Kickstarter does well, then I could have a budget to hire other animators and build a bigger production, a bigger pipeline. By bigger, I just mean like a few people, because right now it's basically just me and my animation partner, Kid Pin, who do everything. But so it's just everything's done by 2 people: backgrounds, storyboards, cleanup, rough animation, shading, compositing, everything. But I'd really like to have more budget so I could hire more than just one person, like have someone that does backgrounds, compositor, sound effects, even like a team of like 5 to 10 people. Then I could crank out stuff a lot faster. Also utilize skills that I don't have as much experience in. But yeah, like doing the rubber hose style, I'm pretty comfortable with that style, because it's a lot of fluid type motions and the joints don't have to be well articulated. I mean, in fact, for rubber hose you don't even show the joints. It's just loose rubber hosey limbs, and those animate in a very appealing way, even though it's not realistic. And Walt Disney wanted to, get away from that stuff as soon as possible, because he was obsessed with conveying realism in the animation. And not just like realism in the sense of just copying life, but showing things that, because everything was still caricatured, but he wanted things that were more articulated and realistic in their movements, while still exaggerating reality, of course. But I do like rubber hose, how it just ignores the laws of physics and you can just do anything, and it's like being in a dream. I really love that, and I want to explore telling narrative stories through that style. And also, like, the story structure in a rubber hose cartoon can be more dreamlike too. So I know before I was talking about how I kind of want to get away from just like dream surrealism, where it's just like you're looking at something that feels like you're dreaming. Like, I guess I should rephrase that too. I want to turn that down a little bit, the percentage of that down, and put in a little bit more narrative and a little bit more structure, but not sacrifice the dreamlike qualities that animation does excel at. Because in animation you can really do anything. And that to me is the joy of animation, not just trying to copy things or make things look really realistic. And that can look really impressive, like a really well animated lion, or like a super realistic monkey swinging on branches. That can look really cool, but it's not the only way, and it's not like the superior way, even if it looks more like it took more life drawing skills to accomplish. It's really still a matter of what you're trying to show and what kind of vibe you're going for. And yeah, I really like stuff that feels it looks impossible, but it feels like what you might experience in a dream. Because dreaming is a very isolating experience in the sense that when you're in a dream, no one will ever be able to be in that dream. No one will ever experience exactly what you're experiencing or what you're thinking. No matter how much you reach out or try to communicate a thought to someone, that thought is contained within your skull. It can never be truly understood and experienced by another person. But with animation, you are able to project your dreams onto a surface for other people to see. And that to me is really cool because you're like syncing your brain up with another person and spilling your visual ideas into someone else's head, and then they're seeing it, and maybe it'll become part of their dreams. And it's like this cycle, like a ant colony of dreams that are laying down these chemical trails, and the chemical trails are attracting other ants, and these chemical trails are like art influences that are influencing other ants, and then an entire genre gets created into this ant colony where no one individual ant can claim ownership of the colony or the style or genre or anything like that, but every ant is an indispensable part of the creative process. And yeah, I don't know what I just said, but sometimes that happens when I start drawing and talking at the same time. I just say stuff. But I hope what the gist of what I was saying kind of made sense. Like, I guess it's not that deep. It's like you draw stuff and people see it, obviously. You know. Yeah. Inviting them into the shared experience spaces. Totally. Oh boy. Alright. I think I'll take a break from this specific loop and go on to another one. Yeah. It's kind of interesting. Neurons actually work pretty similar to ants, where they, like, no one neuron is conscious, of course, but when you get billions of them together, they simulate a conscious organism. Like thousands of ants together create a super organism, like a brain, like a super intelligent structure. But like no one individual ant knows what the heck's going on. They're just following their coded genetic signals. And it's the same way with a specific neuron. Like no one neuron knows that it's branching out and trying to connect with other neurons. See, I think this one is more or less done. I might add a toon shade to this one. So the other cell shading stuff is doing hand by hand. This one, I think I'm actually going to use my toon shader, which is way faster, but you have less articulation over the specific angles. Like doing things by hand always looks better, but this can be a way to just get some form in really fast. So we'll test out the toon shade. Select a different color. So that's with the toon shader. I might adjust the thickness a little bit. I think the angle's probably correct, but let's get the thickness down a little bit. So this just automatically adds shading or highlights to your form, but again, it's just like around the outlines. So like I couldn't toon shade this these highlights in the eye here. This would have to definitely be done by hand. You can't just set a program to do that. But the shading of these outlines, faster to do it toon shading. So when I have my toon shader on, it's like that. So I think I'm gonna stick with that for this specific thing. But yeah, the whole thing about the ants and the neurons and the consciousness, it's kind of what the vibe I'm going for the bird movie building the tower. It's gonna be called Terror of Babel. They're building the tower that never stops rising, and they're all kind of like individual neurons, but they don't really know why they're building the tower. And it'll be there'll be like cool stuff coming out of it too, like roller coasters coming out of the tower and crazy stuff, like weird technology stuff. But yeah, I don't do drugs, by the way. I always feel like I have to tell people that. Not that I'm judging anyone, I'm just saying for me personally. I have enough trouble dealing with reality as it is. Alright, so that toon shader, this would have taken at least a couple hours probably to cell shade the outlines like this by hand. So I definitely try to be mindful of when I can use the toon shader when it does make sense. And yeah, I may or may not. So I could possibly fill this eye part in and use a toon shader there. I'll just see what that might look like really quick. Alright, do a little this, do a little that. Your work is always so beautifully mesmerizing. Oh, thank you. I appreciate the kind words. It's yeah, the thing about making art is that, at least from what I've just based on talking to people and also my own personal experiences, like you don't really notice your progression because you work on it so hard and it just feels like such a struggle. So, you know, the kind words are of course appreciated. Alright, I'm gonna see what this looks like with toon shading on this specific thing. Okay, I see what I did there. I need to set the layer to add so it's light. Alright, I actually think this could work. So if I did this, I'm just gonna apply this. So if I do the toon shading on this little section of the eye, I'll have to go over later and I'm gonna have to erase that part. So now I'll just be left with this outline part, and I think that could look pretty cool. Yeah, I think that looks pretty cool. Because I'm imagining this blue section popping out of the body, so if the light was coming down like this angle, then it makes sense that we should have some highlights up here. Ooh, I might actually go over again and add some highlights like that. Actually no, that's too glossy. Anyways, so yeah, now I'm gonna go over frame by frame and fill in this eye and then use my toon shader to make it match the form. I do need to disable the other toon shading really quick. Yeah, I've been streaming on YouTube kind of more frequently. I used to never, but I don't know, it's kind of interesting. I like to document the process too. Kind of have like a fossil record showing the animation process. because like, of course you have your stuff when you finish it, but sometimes it's cool to see what you were working on that day as you were making it. And also it's nice to just talk and sometimes talk to people. Even though it's somewhat of a one-way conversation, I can't hear anyone's voice. But it's still nice to see someone say something, then I say something. Excuse me. How many years have you been doing animation? Well, I guess, let's see here. Like 15, I think. Oh shit, messed that up. The first few years was just like making flip books though. Yeah. Alright, now I'm gonna add the toon shader. So it'll match stuff like that. Alright, now I have to go through these frame by frame and clean up the messy parts of the toon shader that I don't need. Zoom in a bit more. Bring this main panel out. Actually, never mind. Yeah, animating is definitely not glamorous. It's not like rock and rolling on a stage. You're very sitting on your butt, doing things tediously, and it's more like being a scientist. But I like that. I like the repetitive, meditative quality of this. Yeah, definitely. The outcome, it's when you see all your drawings lined up moving, when they come to life, it's all worth it in the end. And I've looked at stuff I made years ago, and I can kind of remember the pains and sorrows and tribulations, but in a way I'm almost nostalgic for them. So even though at the time it might suck, once you're done with it, you have like this rush of relief, and it just feels like you were in a Dragon Ball Z show, and you finally trained so hard, and you beat the bad guy. It's like an RPG game, you level up. Oh yes, I love rough animatics, for sure. It's a trend now that the animatics are almost more like full rough animation. It's like work creep, scope creep, where storyboard artists are becoming animatic makers and animators and kind of taking on way more jobs than they originally were meant to. But with an animatic, you can tell, you can pretty much tell the whole story. You're just not going to have the little visual flourishes. I saw an animatic on Instagram yesterday. I can't remember what the person was called now, but it was like a little camping trip, and he had really cool stuff in the animatic of following a bird, flying through the forest. There's a lot of cool 3D camera movements, and I wanted to see more. It was just a short 1-minute thing, but I got hooked into the story of this camper setting up his campsite and trying to find toilet paper. He had a big luxurious campsite, all the bells and whistles, but then none of that mattered because he couldn't find his toilet paper. And it's like a simple gag, but it hooked me, and I wanted to see where it went from there. I think making an animatics, or just like a short little animatics, definitely a way to go too on doing a Kickstarter. You have to show proof of concept. You can't just say you have a cool idea. You need to show it and not just explain it. Because anyone can explain something, but can you show it? That's the real testament to the feasibility of whether you can make it and also get people on board and excited about something. Alright, pretty happy with that. See what this bad boy looks like so far. A little save. Oh, okay, the camping storyboard was by Steve Draws. So if you look for Steve Draws on Instagram, you'll find it. There's a little more touch-up I need to do. Where is it? There it is. To get rid of this stuff happening around the eye. Actually, I might go with that. Okay. I think this specific loop is probably done. Might do some other stuff with it later, but I have another eyeball guy. Okay. Alright, so I need to go to the bathroom a little bit, drink some water, be right back. Oh boy. Let's see, what color was I using on this cell shading? Okay, I'll put this at 25%. That looks nice. Put on 25%, multiply. I've never worked in Unreal Engine. The closest probably thing I can even say I've worked is with that is Blender. I do everything hand drawn frame by frame. My puny little 2D animation brain struggles on Blender. But I've seen cool stuff with Unreal. So this is the color I'm using to cell shade this. It's like purple, and then I set it to multiply, put on 25%. I find purple is often a good color to use for putting on multiply for your shadows. It just has a nice little vibe to it. Might not be showing up on the phone so good. This phone is so bright. I would love to work on games. I have game ideas too, but yeah, it's like the more technical aspect of that kind of stuff is where I get lost. I have a Game Maker Studio. Haven't really messed around in it too much. Got it on a Black Friday sale. But I have thought about doing like a game short film tie-in, like that Firefly story I was talking about earlier. You know, they could be like a cool game equivalent of that. The fireflies versus the light-sucking mosquitoes. I mean, Rubber Hose cartoons in general lend themselves to platformers, because so many, well, all the early platformers were heavily inspired by Rubber Hose cartoons. From Mario, Sonic, all of them, they're basically like Rubber Hose cartoon worlds. There's one Rubber Hose cartoon by Iwerks. And this was, I think, when he left Disney and started his own studio. He had like Flip the Frog, a lot of characters nobody remembers, and his stories were very surreal and kind of lacking in like character. His characters just didn't grab audiences the same way that Disney's did. But of course, he was a brilliant animator. But one he did that I really liked was I think it was called Balloon Land. It might be called something else, but it's about these balloon people that live up in the sky, and it's really fun. And it's like, it feels like a video game. It feels like the enemy is like a Cuphead boss, basically. Well, that makes sense because Cuphead obviously was inspired by all those cartoons. But there's another cartoon, Picnic Panic, I think is what it's called. It was by Van Buren, and they did the Rainbow Parade cartoons, which were like silly symphonies, but in a different studio doing like a silly symphony style. Walt Disney actually tried to sue him because, of course, Disney was, pretty, it's just kind of ironic because he kind of ended up doing a lot of the stuff that was done to him by like Pat Sullivan and other kind of people that were trying to rip off Disney's stuff and kind of do unfair business practices to him. And then he kind of ended up doing that to other, competing studios, trying to throw the law on the books at other studios. But like, you can't copyright the concept of like cartoon with singing. So I thought that was kind of silly. Silly symphony. But the Rainbow Parades are pretty fun. But there's a Rainbow Parade called Picnic Panic, and the Kettle character from Cuphead, the old grandpa guy, is basically the grandpa Kettle in that cartoon. And there's also like little cups in the Picnic that are proto Cuphead characters. I'm not saying Cuphead ripped it off or anything. I mean, the creators even, have talked about their influences. They're very open about their influences. But my favorite cartoon from the parade, the Rainbow Parade, is Sunshine Makers. That one's really, it creates a really strong feeling of setting in place where you feel like you're in this town with its own logic and rules. And it's kind of funny, like in the comments, everyone's interpreting it through our modern lens of being more sensitive to like psychological, mental health type stuff. Because if you look at it like beyond surface level of the cartoon of these sunshine makers trying to make everyone happy, there is almost like a kind of more insidious, darker spin to it of like this toxic positivity, where the sunshine makers don't let anyone feel any negative emotion ever, and it's like, but of course the cartoon's not trying to say anything like that. It's not meant to be, deeper than what it is. It doesn't need to be. It's just kind of interesting how, like in the comments, like all the older people that grew up with the cartoons just are enjoying the animation and the story, but like some more like younger people, because we've seen more stories and shows now that are and more books and just in culture, like mental health stuff is becoming less taboo, more talked about, so they are seeing it from another angle, which is, it's interesting. I'm not saying it's good or bad or anything like that. It's just fascinating how art that was made over 100 years ago can be reinterpreted. It's also a little ironic because the director of that cartoon, the Sunshine Makers, was insane. Like, actually, I don't know if insane, is that insensitive? I don't know. But he got fired from being an animator because he just had no emotional regulation. He would scream at people. He took scissors to one animator, tried to, stab them with scissors, and so he got fired. And unfortunately, just kind of lost it after that. But it's just kind of interesting that the creator of this cartoon that's all about you have to be positive, he was very opposite of the message of that cartoon. It's kind of fascinating. But I've been watching a lot of SpongeBob. I really think SpongeBob's one of the best cartoons. The first 3 seasons. I don't even know if I've seen anything past season 4, besides like maybe random clips here and there. But I wasn't really. I kind of fell off SpongeBob after season 4 because I just that's when I was going through an awkward, growing up stage where I sold a lot of my video games and I didn't want to watch kid cartoons, all that. But from what I've heard, the quality of the show did kind of fall off, but has supposedly gotten better in the past couple years. Boy, I love SpongeBob. It's like a microcosm of life. Especially watching it now that I'm older. I definitely identify with Squidward more. I feel like I'm like 50% SpongeBob, 50% Squidward. Because I'm a little bit dumb like SpongeBob, but I'm also a little bit tired like Squidward. It's just such a tightly made show. Like those first couple seasons, 10-minute episode, and they accomplish so much in that screen time. I think it's often taken for granted sometimes, like shows that are made for kids. There's so much thought and planning and care that goes into a good family friendly show. Like Hey Arnold's another one. I started rewatching that pretty recently, and there's a lot of stuff. Like I enjoyed the show as a kid a lot, but again, it's another one of those shows that watching it through a more experienced lens, you see these fundamental truths to the characters and these timeless stories in a show like Hey Arnold that have stood the test of time. And I think that's has become one of the best American cartoon shows as well. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff out now too. It's not like every era has dips and peaks. It's not like everything in the 90s or 80s was amazing. There's a lot of stuff that wasn't good, that we just don't talk about anymore, but we remember the peaks. And of course it's up to personal taste too. streamed for 3.5 hours yesterday on my YouTube channel. It's the longest stream I've ever done, but it was a silent stream, so I just had chill music on. But this time I'm talking a little bit. I'm still going through non-verbal spurts, but I think when I'm doing a talking stream, it wears my neurons out faster. It makes me want to take a nap. Yeah, I'm streaming on Instagram right now. Also streaming on simultaneously. I'm using OBS to stream on my animated loop channel. So, yeah. But I normally stream on my main channel, Mikey Buzan Animation on YouTube. And I'm gonna try to figure out, considering trying to figure out how to do Twitch maybe, to try to simultaneously stream on Twitch and YouTube. I don't really know that much about Twitch. Every time I've gone on that platform, it just feels like a cluster F of noise. But yeah, I might try to figure out how to do that. But yeah, because someone told me that there's a decent art community on there, so I thought it was just about gaming and stuff. Oh man, sorry to hear you have insomnia. I hate insomnia. I get that too. Stuff I find that helps the most is usually just like rain sounds or like some really quiet video game music. Just something to take my mind off of my internal monologue. I'm very affected by sleep. If I don't get at least 8 hours, I'm a little dum-dum. Have a hard time regulating emotions if I'm not completely charged up. It's like everything rests on a good night's of sleep. Yeah, doing art streams, like I said before, it's nice to have like a document of your process. Of course, you could just do a screen recording, but there's something about the live aspect of live streaming. It does keep you focused on the task at hand, because if I was just drawing this without the live stream happening, I might be more tempted to just check my email, check social media. So I often will do that, where I just feel the slightest bit of anxiety of like, oh, maybe someone emailed me back, or I need to check this thing. But yeah, when you're live streaming, in a way it can be a productivity enhancer. So I've been kind of using that as another sort of benefit of live streaming, something to motivate myself to keep up the habit of documenting the process. Dreaming Turtle, yes, I would recommend it. It's I don't know. Worst case scenario, you can always delete it too. It's like you really have nothing to lose except your reputation if you say something really stupid. Many careers have ended from live streaming, actually. But I'm being a good Boy Scout. Could never tell a lie. I personally like watching other artists work on their stuff, so I have always felt the work could attract like-minded individuals. Yes, I agree with that. It makes you feel less alone. I like looking at other people's stuff too. Whew. I'll take a breather from this specific loop. The process for this batch of creatures has been, I've just been kind of working on them all at once. And as I get burnt out on one batch, I just kind of flip to the other, which I normally wouldn't recommend doing that. It's better to just stick to the task at hand, but I guess also for live streaming, it's a little more interesting to show a few different creatures happening. So, let's see here. So I could work on, it's like a little clammy type of thing. Opens its mouth. It's like a pearl inside it, kind of. Color bits of this one. Yeah, exactly. Majority of it's done. It's just a matter of doing colors and cell shading. It's pretty easy to jump back into cell shading. But if this was like rough animation, yeah, I'd definitely stick to one thing at a time. Actually, I might need to make this little strand a different color since it's going into this main shape here. We'll deal with that later. These little highlights. How about this tongue part? Okay, do this for the shadows. Sink here. Kind of having trouble figuring out how to do this part. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm fizzling out here. I think I need to eat dinner. I'm tired. Alright, I guess I'm done. Thank you for watching. And yeah. I'll be posting these soon onto Patreon. So, see you later, Animator.